Quick now, think of Ontario's capital city and what comes to mind? CN Tower, Rogers Centre, the Eaton Centre, Leafs, Raptors, Blue Jays, Argos, subways, streetcars. Well, if author Helena Moncrieff has her way, you might start to think of Toronto for its myriad secret orchards, which could go some distance to addressing hunger, waste, and general food illiteracy. She chronicles it all in The Fruitful City, the enduring power of the urban food forest. And Helena Moncrieff joins us now. So good to have you in that chair.
My pleasure.
In the interest of full disclosure, you and I have known each other a long time, and I used to work with your lovely and talented husband, Havard Gould, at CBC many, many moons ago.
You did.
So we just put that out there for the public's edification. I want to know when it first occurred to you that Toronto was not some concrete jungle, but in fact a place where there is all sorts of food growing naturally all over the place.
Well, my father grew up as a farmer, so we always had...
In Toronto?
No, in Ireland.
In Ireland, okay.
Yes, but we always had food growing of some kind in our backyard. Now, this is no small feat. I grew up in a ravine, the bottom of a ravine, very shaded, and he tried to grow everything, not successfully, but the one thing he did grow was peach trees, and there was nothing better than having a warm peach directly off the tree. So I did grow up around that miniature agricultural sentiment from my Irish father.
And that somehow stuck with you, eh?
It stuck with me, but what happened was our eldest daughter was volunteering, as one does in high school, and she came upon Not Far From the Tree, which is a fruit harvesting organization. It sends volunteers in to pick unwanted fruit from people's backyards. They split the bounty 3 ways. The homeowner gets a third, the pickers get a third, and a third goes to a community agency. She kept coming home with these bags and bags of fruit, and I have to confess, some of it I didn't recognize because I am a city person. And I asked that question that we all ask now, is it edible? Ridiculous question, why would they be picking it?
Well, you say ridiculous, but that's what everybody thinks. When you see it growing on a tree in public, you think, can I eat that?
That's right, and that is part of this food and fruit illiteracy that has developed really since the 50s, that we've lost touch with what's in our cities, and that we've become what grows naturally in our cities. We've become fruit illiterate, and we've developed this poisonous relationship with nature that we don't want to touch anything just in case, instead of figuring out what it is.
Well, let's see if we can do something about that during the course of this conversation. And I want to start with a guy named Francesco, who has a tree that you write about. Tell me about Francesco's tree.
Oh, so Francesco's from Italy. He came here and bought this house in the 70s, a corner lot, not big.
West End of Toronto.
West End Toronto, yeah, St. Clair, Bathurst area. Now this happens in cities across the country, I might add. It's not just a Toronto thing. But Francesco had planted about 16 fruit trees in this postage stamp yard all around the house, much to his kids' consternation. You can't farm in the front yard, as you know, not in those days. So he had a fig tree that he planted. And anyone who's Italian or Portuguese will recognize these stories. You come to this country and you want to bring something that tastes like home. You want to plant your flag in the ground. And his flag in the ground was a fig tree.
And he loved this tree.
He loved this tree.
Took total care of it all the time.
Right.
Even in his older age.
Yes. So most people who grow figs in Canada have discovered something that they wouldn't have done in Portugal or Italy. They wrap them up and they dig a trench as long as the tree is tall and bury it for the winter. So it's dormant for the winter, and then they undo it all and bring it back up in the spring. And it usually takes the participation of many of the men in the neighborhood, and there's always grappa or something involved. Well, Francesco's fig grew too tall for his lot because it's a small lot. So instead, he wrapped it up, put in a teepee-like structure, put in a thermostat and a space heater. So he heated it all winter long. But when he died, which was not that long ago, his family cleared out everything to make the house as sellable as possible. They took out all the plumber's pipe with the rows of beans on it. But his son looked at this fig tree, this was January, and the heat was still on it, and he just did not have the heart to pull the plug.
So what's the status of the tree today?
Well, you'll have to read the book.
Okay, we're not going to give away anything of the plot here. But
well, and we can decide what the status is if we use it as a symbol of what's going on in our cities.
Understood. There is something that I did read in the book that I found quite shocking, which is that you've got the FAO, whose acronym I forget right now, Food and Agriculture Organization of something or other. A third of all food grown in this world is wasted? A third?
Yep.
How do we do that?
All along the line. The farmers will not harvest what will not sell. The handler, the middleman, will not pick up what that person can't sell. The grocery stores will not put out marred fruit because when we go to the grocery store, what do? We look for the shiniest, roundest, perfect apple, and we forget about the stuff that is now deemed ugly fruit, even though your kids will find it quite amusing. So that starts to happen. Then we get the big box stores involved. 2 for 1, great deal. How many heads of lettuce can you eat? How many pounds of cherries can you eat? You buy it because it looks like a good deal, but the bulk purchases are bigger than our bellies can manage. And so off it goes into the compost or the green bin, and we've wasted even more.
As you look around this capital city, how much unwanted or ignored fruit do you see?
Well, I know that Not Far From the Tree estimates there are 1.5 million pounds of fruit produced in Toronto alone each year.
Produced. And if we use the same assumption that a third of it goes to waste, my goodness gracious, that's a lot.
Yeah.
You know, there are a lot of natural orchards or natural places in this city where you can find fruit. I want to know if we're allowed to have it, though. Are we?
Oh, see, that's the tricky part.
Okay.
So, Not Far From the Tree picks from private properties. Hidden Harvest in Ottawa picks from public properties because they have found the same thing on public property in Ottawa, so that's where they pick from. Fruit Share Berry picks from both, I believe, and Sudbury's Urban Harvest Organization is planting trees, as is Berry's. So we're finding these different methods. What's happening now is in most cities you are not allowed to pick from parks because it's public property.
An ordinary citizen is not allowed to pick the apple off the apple tree in a public park?
No, not in Toronto for sure.
But an organization maybe could have a deal to do that.
That's what Hidden Harvest has done in Ottawa.
I see. How about private property? Are there any circumstances under which, if you're out for a walk, you can pluck an apple off an apple tree in somebody's yard?
Okay, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know the rules on that. My rule of thumb is you can pluck one service berry or you can pluck one mulberry. If it's a crab apple, you will probably get the homeowners coming out and thanking you and begging you to take them.
Because they don't want them?
They don't want them. They think they're messy. This is the problem.
How about, I mean, there are trees bearing fruit outside office buildings. Can you take those?
Go for it.
That's okay.
Here's what I do. Go for it until someone says, hey, what are you doing?
Okay, let's, you know what, Sheldon, this is a good time to take a look at some of these pictures here. Helena, you look at the monitor here in the studio here and just take us through this. Okay, what are we looking at here?
So this is a cherry tree, beautiful, beautiful cherry. Now this would be an example of one where I saw it, picked it. It's an old industrial area in the west end of the city. Unkept, no one is taking care of this tree. In fact, I think it's gone now, but it must be the remnants of an old orchard. No one goes near it. Beautiful cherries. I just walked up and filled a bag.
And you ate it and it was fine? Delicious. Do you have to do anything? Like, you have to wash them off, I guess, but beyond that, anything beyond that?
No, and in fact, they haven't been treated with anything, so they're a little bit organic. I won't say purely organic. We don't know what's in the soil, but they haven't been treated with anything.
Right. As in pesticides or sprays or that kind of thing?
Right, yeah.
Okay. Photo 2, please. Next picture. What are we seeing?
So this is a lovely example of how we decide what is edible and what is not. This is on my own street. This is a neighbor's crabapple tree. She's one of the ones who said to me, "You're doing me a favor, please pick these fruits." And yet there beside it is a apple core of probably a store-bought apple. One we consider edible and coveted, the other one we let fall to the ground. And yet both can be used. Now you're not going to eat a crabapple out of your hand unless you really like tart stuff, but It makes a lovely applesauce. There was a fellow there a couple of weeks before I got to it, picking bags of crab apples to make cider with. And he says he always puts crab apple in his ciders because it gives it a richer taste.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. Next picture, please, Sheldon. Here's number 3.
So this is a fruit pick with not far from the tree. We were picking green apples on this tree. The homeowner came out before we started and said, "Oh, thank goodness you're here. This is like Christmas for me." I said, "Oh, because you love the apples?" "No, I hate them." She's got this huge tree full of delicious green apples, and it's too much for her, and she has to deal with what she refers to as the mess. Now, I'm not judging, she can't manage it all, that's fine. But they're lovely apples, and I've made all kinds of things with them.
What's the mess? Like when they fall out of the tree? They fall to the ground and...
Yeah, they fall to the ground. The raccoons love them, the squirrels love them, the bees love them. Great.
So, well, half great, because certainly nobody wants mice, rats, or raccoons in their backyard.
No.
So you're really doing her a favor by going and getting those apples before they become a mess for mice and raccoons.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's the solution. Pick it, and someone can use it. Because all of this fruit, or a third of all the fruit picked here, or a quarter in other cities with their methods, goes to a community agency. And some of those agencies, some of the clients in those agencies, never get to have fresh fruit.
Okay, let's go to photo number 4. We'll check out the next one now. And here we go. What are we looking at here?
So these are crab apples from that same tree, and it's an example of what we see as mess. There's no question that's a mess.
And this just happens naturally, right?
Yeah, they fall off the tree.
It just falls off. And
they're ripe and they fall off.
And there they sit, and people ride their bikes over them, or they drive over them, or it's a mess. Okay.
Or you attract them in the house.
Right.
So the solution, again, pick them. Yeah.
This is gorgeous. Next picture, please, Sheldon. Oof, is that pretty? Where's that?
That is, those are grapes at a house in Midtown Toronto, I think.
Come on.
Yeah.
These are just growing in a backyard in Toronto.
Yeah, lots of them. And when you see grapes, you can track back who lived there. Chances are, I didn't ask at this house, but the chances are it was either someone of Italian or Portuguese or Greek heritage. Because you have to have those grapes because that's what you had at home. So they're leaving these agricultural graffiti marks around our cities to tell us who was there.
Agricultural graffiti. Love that. Okay.
Yes.
One more picture. Go ahead, Sheldon. Last one. What are we seeing here?
This is Bobby. Bobby was the supreme gleaner, as they call them, at Not Far From the Tree. I'm thinking of volunteering so I can put the title on my resume. He is picking pears at a house in, this was near Bloor and Lansdowne.
West end of Toronto again. Okay.
Yeah, so we were picking pears. They were delightful, and the beauty of the pears is they will ripen off the tree. So you can pick the whole tree, hang on to them, and wait till they ripen. Bobby tells me he was going to make his share into jam. I've been chopping them up and putting them into cheese sandwiches.
Okay, help me now with some of the politics around all of this, because I gather neighborhood groups can somehow get together, decide that they want to create an orchard or several trees or something like that in a public park. They can get permission from City Hall, I guess, to do it. But then you have a public meeting to consider all of everything. And what tends to happen?
Well, this is the next phase, is taking the trees out of the backyard because we're hearing that it's too much for the size of families we have now. Move them into a public space so we can all have access. So what we're hearing, and this is across the country, I took what I heard from Susan Poisner, who set up the Ben Nobleman Orchard in Toronto, community orchard. Neighbors were concerned that the orchard would cause a mess. Okay. The kids would get cherry stains on their t-shirts.
That's a concern.
Yeah, okay. Wasps and bees, yes, of course. There's benefits to that, but sure, okay, that's going to happen. They were concerned that there would be more assaults in the park.
Okay, help me figure that out.
I'm guessing this is someone who hasn't seen a modern orchard and was thinking oak trees or something where people could hide behind them, or bushes or something like that. Also concerned about roadkill because it would attract raccoons. then maybe we shouldn't have garbage cans, because that certainly attracts raccoons.
I'm reading between the lines here, and I'm sensing that you think this is all ridiculous, all of these concerns.
Well, they're concerns to air that open the door again to more education about food, food literacy, where our food is grown, and opportunities. We heard, when I presented these to the head arborist in Halifax, he just nodded and said, yep, heard it.
Heard it all before.
Heard it all before. They heard it there too. Once you put it in, oh, that's what you meant. These spindly little wee trees, they're not huge trees, especially when you first plant them. And you keep them trimmed so that you can pick them. An apple tree that's been tended tends to look like a claw, so the sun gets in the middle, easy to pick. And you don't let them grow too high or you can't pick them. Then you need a cherry picker, a literal cherry picker up there. So we hear these complaints. Generally what's happened now, though, is cities are very supportive in a way that they had not been in the past. And so once the trees are in, the neighbors like it. In the case of the Ben Nobleman Community Orchard, it rejuvenated that neighborhood, and people started to come there because there were more people in the park tending to the trees and the gardens.
Nice.
So it really helped that garden.
You know, if you drive 10 minutes from here, up Avenue Road, there's a street called Old Orchard Boulevard. And, you know, I've passed it 1,000 times and never once did it occur to me that it's called that because there may have actually been an old orchard there once upon a time.
Right.
That is the case.
Exactly.
Do you know if there's anything growing there now?
I have looked, because I've had the same thought. I've looked and I've found nothing. There is an Orchard Street school down near Dufferin, I believe. Okay. Dufferin and Bloor area, and they do have an old orchard in there, and the school is now rejuvenating it. So we're starting to see, we're on that other side of it now, starting to look at what is there and how we can use it and use it for educational purposes, to reconnect people with their food, to understand that we should not be that far from farm to fork.
Well, let's finish up on this, because this being Thanksgiving, some people will be giving thanks in a religious way, and you've mentioned it in the book. Orchards are mentioned in the Bible. Fruit trees are mentioned in the Bible.
Yes.
Tell us how.
Yes. We hear about fruit and stewardship in many, many religions. The idea of planting something for the future generation is part of a lot of biblical references, and in other religions as well. That you plant this tree not for yourself, because you won't get to enjoy the fruits of your labor. It's for the next generation. And so that's what we do. You plant that tree in the hopes that someone else will enjoy it, and that's a lovely thing to do. And to continue to steward this planet.
I think the appropriate response from me to that is amen. Helena, we're so glad you came in tonight. The book is called The Fruitful City, The Enduring Power of the Urban Food Forest. A great read, and lots of great recipes too from all of the fruit that you've been picking all over this city. So thanks so much and enjoy the day.
You're very welcome.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.